They were told the rivers ran yellow with gold, but the only thing waiting for them was a white hell of ice and stone. Imagine leaving everything you know, your job, your warm bed, your safety, all of it abandoned to chase a whisper of fortune in a land where the temperature drops so low it can freeze your breath before it leaves your lips. In the late 1890s, the Klondike gold rush wasn't just a migration, it was a fever, a collective madness that consumed the souls of over 100,000 people from every corner of the globe. They called it the last grand adventure. But for most, it was a brutal test of human endurance that pushed them to the very brink of sanity. This is the diary of the Sourdos, the men and women who faced the frozen north with nothing but a dream in their hearts and a mountain of iron-willed grit. The madness began in July 1897 when two steamships docked in San Francisco and Seattle, carrying what newspapers called a ton of gold. Within days, the world went wild. Mayors resigned, doctors left their patients, and policemen dropped their badges, all heading for a place most couldn't even find on a map. But the journey to the Yukon was a gauntlet designed to kill the weak. Before they even saw a grain of gold, they had to face the ton of goods rule. To prevent a mass famine in the wilderness, the Canadian Northwest Mounted Police enforced a strict law. No one could enter the Yukon without a full year's supply of food and equipment. This meant carrying 2,000 pounds of supplies per person. Imagine the sheer scale of that burden. You couldn't just hire a truck. There were no roads. You had to be the beast of burden. This led thousands to the infamous Chilkoot Pass. They called it the Golden Stairs, but there was nothing golden about the reality. It was a 45-degree incline of pure, slick ice, rising 1,000 feet in the final stretch. Because a man could only carry about 60 or 80 pounds at a time, each stampeder had to climb that pass 30, 40, sometimes 50 times just to move all his gear to the summit. One trip up meant 6 hours of agonizing, step-by-step labor in a human chain that never stopped. If you stepped out of line, you might wait hours to get back in. One trip down took minutes in a terrifying slide on your backside. Under the weight of heavy packs, knees buckled and lungs burned in the thin, frozen air. To stop was to die. To look back was to admit defeat. For those who avoided the Chilkoot, there was the White Pass, better known as the Dead Horse Trail. It was supposed to be easier for pack animals, but it became a graveyard of unimaginable cruelty. The journals of Arthur Henderson, a clerk from Seattle, describe a path so treacherous and narrow that horses would slip from the cliffs or sink chest-deep into suffocating mud. 3,000 pack animals died on that trail in a single season. The stench of rot mixed with the cold mountain air, a grim reminder of the price of greed. But the humans kept moving. They stepped over the carcasses of their animals and their own broken dreams, driven by a hunger that no amount of cold could extinguish. Once they reached the top of the mountains, the struggle wasn't over. It was just changing shape. They reached Lake Bennett, where they had to stop and become shipbuilders. Imagine thousands of people, most of whom had never held an adze or a saw, felling trees and hand-whipping lumber to build crude, rickety boats. They needed a fleet to navigate the 500 miles of the Yukon River. When the ice finally broke in the spring, a chaotic armada of 7,000 handmade boats set sail. Many didn't make it past the Whitehorse Rapids. In those roaring white waters, men watched their entire year of supplies, their food, their tools, their very survival, sink to the bottom in a matter of seconds. Those who survived the water then had to face the ultimate enemy, the Arctic winter. By the time the survivors reached Dawson City, they found a place that looked less like a city and more like a fever dream made of mud. A loaf of bread cost a fortune, an egg was a luxury, a bottle of whiskey was worth more than a man's life. Most discovered the crushing truth. The best gold claims had been staked months, even years before they arrived. But the Klondike didn't care about their disappointment. To find gold, they had to work. They spent their days digging through permafrost, ground that stayed frozen solid even in the height of summer. The mining process was a slow, rhythmic torture. Every night they would build massive fires on the ground to melt a few inches of the earth. The next morning, they would dig out the mud before the ground froze again. Day after day, inch by inch, they descended into dark frozen shafts, hauling up buckets of dirt to be washed only when the spring thaw arrived. It was back-breaking, mind-numbing work performed in near total darkness, while outside, the temperatures plunged to -50. In Henderson's diary, he describes the sound of the trees literally exploding in the night as the sap inside them froze and expanded. Their world became a landscape of white and gray, where the line between hope and hallucination began to blur. But even for those who never found a single nugget, even for those who left the Yukon with empty pockets, a different kind of wealth was forged in that frozen hell. They found a strength they didn't know they possessed. They found that a human being, when driven by a singular purpose, can endure conditions that would kill any other creature on Earth. They discovered that grit isn't something you're born with, it's something you earn through suffering. Looking back, the Klondike Gold Rush is more than a quest for riches. It is the raw DNA of the pioneer spirit. It is the story of people who looked at a mountain of ice and said, "I will climb it." It is the story of the human will refusing to be buried by the elements. Fortune is fleeting. Many who found gold lost it just as quickly in the gambling dens of Dawson. But the grit you develop while chasing your dreams, that is permanent. They went for the gold, but they found themselves. And in the archives of history, that is the greatest treasure of all.